Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm playing with a new to me media supply. I'm a sucker for getting art supplies. Even though I'm not an artist, I just like playing. So these are Stabilo Carb Othello color pencils, and they are a pastel, like a chalk pastel coloring pencil is what they call them. And I am going to take you with me on my journey of learning how to mix colors. So, if you haven't seen Zali, who is the maker of the Palette Scout, they have put out a new online course called the Infinite Palette, and it's all about teaching us how to mix colors to confidently create the colors that we are looking for. And I originally filmed all of this footage thinking I would maybe present it in real time, and I was talking through as as I was doing things. So you're gonna find that my voiceover is not going to really match my gestures because I decided it was much too long of a video. So I'm leaving everything in, but I am going to speed it up considerably because it actually took me probably an hour and a half to complete this exercise. And I'm going to be sharing my journey with you as I go. So, what I did was watch the first handful of lessons, and I'm up to the point where we can do our first mixing exercise. And it starts off with choosing two of each of the main primary colors. So your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. But for each of those, you want to pick a more cool version versus a more warm version. So there's a cool yellow and a warm yellow, a cool blue and a warm blue, a cool red and a warm red. And so when you have identified those out of whatever medium you are using, the lesson that I've learned is that if you want nice bright colors, then you want to mix your two primary colors that are closest to each other. So, and to be honest, the easiest way to learn this yourself is to pick up the the Infinite Color online class. I'm gonna leave a link to it in the description box below because it gets explained way better than the cursory overview that I'm giving here. But I just want to practice this and see if I can maybe apply what I've learned. And so I am this is kind of how I do my swatching sometimes when I get a new media supply and I want to swatch out how well, like a new brand of color pencils, to me anyways, how well it blends. This is what I do. And one of the things that was shown during the lessons is that you can pull out your number 3 card, if you do have the Palette Scout, of the colors that you're trying to blend. And so I picked out the number 3 card of these 4 different shades of green, which are on that spectrum of like a more warm green versus a more cool green. So like a grassy yellow green all the way to the more teal green. And so what I'm trying to do as I blend each little segment of color here is I'm adding more blue if I need to add more blue, more yellow if I need to add more yellow, to try to color match it to these cards. And I really, really like these chalk pastels because, so normally when you play with pastels, they come in a couple different form factors. So pan pastels are nice because they're in like a pan. They're in like a little container. And then normally pastels and charcoal, things like that, they come in like these almost like these bricks. They're kind of and they get your fingers really really dusty and dirty because they're generally, it's not really covered. A lot of times I think some of them are wrapped, but a lot of times you just see the pastels in their more like raw state where if you pick it up, your fingers are going to get really dusty with the pigment. And so these color pencil ones are really nice because of the form factor of it. I mean, you get less pigment at the end of the day, because if you use a form factor where it's the full like stick of color essentially, then you're gonna get a lot more color. But I don't mind that trade-off. I don't mind having clean fingers as I work through this. So these pastels, these chalk pastels, blend really beautifully. I'm just using a little Q-tip and blending. Now, the other thing that we learn is how to create more muted colors. And this is the thing that I've never understood before taking this course. And that is, if you take originally in that first top row there, I mixed a cool yellow with a cool blue. They're right next to each other on the little color wheel that I swatched onto initially. Now I'm using a cool yellow, skipping the cool blue and moving to a more warm blue. And when I do that, I'm actually getting the tones, the toned down version, the more muted version of the initial colors that I made on that top row. And if you're familiar with the Palette Scout, then you'll already know this. But if you're not familiar, all of the Palette Scout cards, if you look on one side, it's like the pure intensity, true saturation. But then when you flip to the back, it's a more toned down version. And I would never have known how to mix those colors myself. But now I kind of understand a little bit and have had a little bit of practice at mixing that myself. And it appears that the key is to go a little bit further down the color wheel. And I think it's just these pairs of your primary colors that's really the key. So between the warm and the cool of each of your primary colors, I feel like maybe we can get pretty much any other color that we want. And what I am eager to do, I'm trying this out with these chalk pastels because I had a suspicion that they would be really blendable, and these are. This is the first time I've ever used these Stabilo Carbothello chalk pastel coloring pencils. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description box as well, because I actually really like these a lot. They blend really nicely. But that's why I wanted to use them, because I feel like I can add a lot of color, go back and forth and add more of one, and then if that was too much, I can go back and add more of the other one. So it makes it really easy to kind of hit the color that I want. I feel like sometimes with alcohol markers, there's only like so much that you can layer before it's just not going to change too much anymore, because there's already too much pigment in the paper. So, but now that I've had this one practice session, I'm a little bit curious to go back and actually try this with some of my alcohol markers, because I feel like if you wanted to, perhaps you could, if you wanted to get into alcohol markers, but they're a little bit expensive and you've heard good things about some of the higher priced markers. Most of them, if you could buy individually. And so if you're just getting into alcohol markers, maybe you just buy the few colors that you really love and you don't want to have to mix every time you go to use them. But then if you want to start, maybe you would just start by getting a warm yellow, a cool yellow, a warm blue, a cool blue, a warm red, a cool red. And at least the way that I do alcohol marker coloring, I do so much layering anyways. So then maybe you can just mix your colors, and get whatever other colors in between on the rainbow that you are interested in. And so I kind of feel like, especially since alcohol markers, they are a translucent medium. So they do blend, some more easily than others, but that would be an interesting experiment. So I'm kind of curious to give this exercise a try with that medium. Now I'm gonna continue to practice this, and here I am trying to mix orange. And I don't know if I did this wrong or if it's just not as noticeable with orange, but I kind of feel like in terms of comparing the original with the what should have been a more muted version of orange, I'm not really seeing the difference too much. When I look at the greens, that top row of green versus the second row of green, I can definitely see that the bottom row is more muted, and it definitely looks different. And now when I look at my orange on the bottom, that's the original one that's supposed to be nice and bright. And the top one is supposed to be more muted. And I guess I can see a little bit of a difference, but really not a huge difference. And it certainly doesn't really match the toned down version of the Palette Scout cards. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And just to complete our mixing exercise, I'm going to go ahead and do purple as well. But I'm going to super speed up the purple since you've kind of watched me do the process twice already. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mix it the first time with the colors that are closest, the two primary colors that are closest to each other on the color wheel. And then I will do the exercise again, but use skip one color, one of the primary colors, and you know what? I'm kind of curious what happens. I should go back and do this. So right now, what I'm mixing is cool red with warm blue, because those are the two that are right next to each other when I look at the color wheel. Now, I'm gonna do that again, and instead of the warm blue, I am going to use cool blue. So this is cool blue, skipping warm blue, and then mixing with cool red. Now, I'm kind of curious what happens if I don't skip the blue, but instead take the warm purple, skip the cool blue, and then mix it with a warm red. What would I get? So I do think, though, at the end of the day, um, you can have your favorite colors, right, and personal preferences, but it is interesting now, very eye-opening to see how colors interact with one another and how to get something more bright and cheerful versus something that's a little bit more toned down. I do think though that with the purples, I could totally see that. With the greens, I could totally see that. But the orange, I don't know. As I mentioned earlier, I don't feel like there's much of a difference. I don't know if it's because I didn't do it right or because maybe it's just less distinguishable because of the nature of orange. Not too sure. But I definitely want to try that exercise of doing the more muted colors, but using the opposite combination that I swatched out on this one. So, if you're curious and you want to go on this color mixing journey with me, I'm going to leave everything in the description box below. So, that's going to include the Zali Palette Scout. Those are where the cards come from. And there's a course that comes with that as well. But the new course that they just put out is the Infinite Color Palette online course. That's what I'm learning and watch the next lesson or two, and then I'm gonna come back and try to apply what I've learned. So if you want to go on this journey with me, like I mentioned, I'll leave links to everything in the description box below. I'm also a big fan of these Stabilo chalk pastel coloring pencils. Your fingers can stay nice and clean as you're using them, and you can get the color exactly where you want it, and they blend out beautifully as well. So really loving those. There'll be links to that in the description box as well. Thanks so much for hanging with me on this one, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye. Hey everybody, a little bit of a bonus footage. So here's what I did. super curious, as you heard me say, and so I just had to try it right away. All right, here's what I did. This first row here is warm red with warm blue, skipping the cool red. And then this is what I did earlier, cool blue with a cool red, skipping this blue. And then this last one is these two here, which you are meant to combine if you want like the truest, brightest color. And there is quite a difference between each of them. And it does look like this is the most sort of saturated and bright. So I still have my cards out. So you can see this best matches this spectrum here. And if I flip this so that I get the muted versions, I see a little bit, let's reorganize it. So we're going red to blue. You kind of have to ignore the two ones on the ends because I just kept those sort of as pure color as I could. So really we're just looking at the muted of where I've mixed, and I see a little bit of it in both. So there's some of those I think more closely match, and then down here I think these this combination here more closely matches Jewel. Maybe this one's in a little bit of both, but kind of fascinating. I think this has been really fun for me, very eye-opening as well, and it's just a really fun exercise to do, just to experiment and play with color a little bit. I think I made the right choice by choosing these pastels because they blend really nicely. So you can really see, you know, how the colors change and shift. And I basically, for each of these swatches, I did this exactly the same way that I would swatch a color mixing exercise with color pencils. So I basically think about it in quarters. So I go 3/4 of the way with one color, and then starting on this side, I go 3/4 of the way with color number 2. So that leaves 1 and 2 pure intensity on both sides. And then I'll do like a second pass, but only halfway, a second pass, only halfway. And then the third pass, that's only like a quarter of the way. And that way you have less and less of the blue on this side, less and less of the red on this side. And it's not super scientific, but it gets this nice little spectrum here, which is really fun to do. It's just a fun exercise, but I definitely am starting to understand better why sometimes I see this, even though I'm intending to get something more like this. And that's really the whole point of taking this class for me, is just to gain some insight, maybe internalize some of this knowledge so that when I mix colors, mostly I'm thinking about alcohol markers, I can get the colors that I want a little bit more confidently. And if I can't get there, then I know what to add in order to shift it the way that I want. Okay, so I just wanted to share this before ending this video. Thanks, everybody. Bye.